In today's Leeds news, Gill backup rumour denied, Perri move in final stages, Trafford transfer details, Hamburg director confirms Bornauw interest, Aaron's link but framing doesn't add, more interest in Joe Gelhardt, and Schulz interest from Leeds stalls. Friday the 7th of August, you're here at the Leeds View with your daily Leeds United news. We do these from a Monday to Friday, as well as a transfer wrap-up at the weekend and podcast twice a week. We've got an awful lot of stuff to get stuck into today. It's a busy end of week, I suppose, dumping of all the rumour and information that's been floating around over the last couple of days. We've got a very heavy goalkeeper start to today's news, but there is a lot of stuff worth talking about. You can check out last night's podcast, by the way, if you want to. We had a busy day as well yesterday after James Trafford signed for Leeds. Myself and Andrea Russo spoke about that. Spoke about the pre-season campaign so far, Daniel Farke's stance and focus going into next season, as well as the incomings, potential outgoings on the next couple of weeks as well. You can check that out. I'll link it at the end of today's video. As well, Charlie Crew, by the way, made his debut for Walsall last night. The first of the loan watch for this season. Came on the 64th minute as Walsall beat Bristol City 1-0. So good start for him. Not so good a start for Michael Scubala at Bristol City. But yeah, we'll start off with today's news and we'll start up on the backup goalkeeper situation. So James Trafford's come in and we've already moved on from that into shinier new toys. And one of the names that popped up as a potential backup for James Trafford last night was Orlando Gill. And this story isn't as black and white as it might have appeared late last night. Paraguay international and San Lorenzo goalkeeper Orlando Gill is rumoured to be on Leeds United's list as a potential number 2 option for James Trafford. But according to reports, a formal bid that was reported last night has not actually gone in. The origin of this story came from Paraguayan journalist Carolyn Carrera, who said that Leeds had made a formal approach and a bid was on the table for Orlando Gill. Another Paraguayan journalist, Bruno Pont, amplified this through his publication, La Grande Jugada. That all came from one side. When it got to the UK, they picked it up and it slightly changed from the UK's perspective. Sky Sports' Sidney Boswell, who's got a very strong track record and should be taken pretty much at his word at this point, had a very direct response to this, and it was the following. Leeds do have a short list of 5+ goalkeepers as they search for James Trafford deputy, and Gill is genuinely one of the names on that list, but no offer has been made to San Lorenzo, contrary to Paraguayan reports. So Leeds do appear at the very minimum to be actively assessing options for a backup goalkeeper. Could be Gill, or Gill, could be Gill. But no offer has been made on a short list of 5 or 6 goalkeepers. It's an interesting one because he's 26 years of age. I believe he's 26 years of age. Come off the back of a pretty decent World Cup as well. He's very young to be coming to the Premier League as a backup goalkeeper. You would imagine he'd fancy himself somewhere else as a first choice keeper. The other side to that, I suppose, is maybe moving to the Premier League and getting some FA Cup games and maybe some League Cup matches, puts him in a shop window to eventually get a move to another Premier League club and use as a stepping stone. But yeah, right now, no offer's gone in, despite reports from Paraguay last night. He's a player of interest, along with the rest of them this summer. Let's move on. Goalkeeper number 2 to talk about today, and it is Lucas Perri. Gianluca Di Marzio last night had the latest on the Lucas Perri situation, and he's confirmed what we all expected to happen, that the move to Torino is now entering its final stages. Now, Di Marzio on his platform reported that Torino are closing in on Lucas Perri, and his arrival in Italy is expected very, very soon and is entering the final stage of an agreement. He's formally put it as this is virtually sealed after Leeds announced James Trafford yesterday. Torino are said to be ironing out the last few details in the deal before they announce Lucas Perri as a brand new player for their club for this season. He will join Torino on an initial 1-year deal with an option to buy come the end of that deal. Fingers crossed Leeds can actually get that option used by the club come the end of the season, because we haven't got a great track record on that. Sidney Boswell in Sky Sports has also confirmed all of the details from Di Marzio as well, and he said that a move will be done once he recovers from the little knock that he picked up while he was on the US tour. It's labelled as minor, no big issues. The final domino has fallen in the 3 goalkeepers related to Leeds United's move for James Trafford. Speaking of James Trafford, let's give you some final details on that one. So some small details on James Trafford's move to Leeds that need explaining, or at least the wording around them needs a bit more detail. A lot of people with questions after last night's podcast, so we'll give you what we found on these and the detail around them. £40 million deal plus bonuses, as it's labelled, not necessarily add-ons. It's labelled as bonuses. The deal contains a 20% sell-on clause. Now, to be clear on that, and what has been reported is that 20% is not 20% of the total valuation of a transfer should Leeds ever sell James Trafford. It's said to be 20% of the profit of a sale. So, for example, if Leeds bought James Trafford for 40 million and they sold him for 60, the profit is 20 million. Man City would get £4 million. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is on the wording of something labelled as matching rights, which essentially just gives Manchester City first refusal should Leeds accept an offer from another club for James Trafford in the future. They would get a chance to match that fee and get first dibs to talk to the player about a move. Now, the player himself doesn't have to accept that, and he can decide to go wherever he wants, but they would get the right to match the bid at the very minimum. Now, that doesn't mean that Leeds have to accept an offer from Manchester City. This only kicks in the scenario where Leeds accept the bid from another club. Then Man City have the right to match that bid. Simple as that. So, not the worst sell-ons in the world, not the worst clauses, I suppose, in a contract that you could possibly get for what will be, hopefully, a very strong signing for Leeds United. Let's move on. So we flagged this one earlier on in the week, but now there is confirmed interest from Hamburg, as their sporting director has now gone on the record about their interest in Sebastiaan Bornauw. Isaac Johnson in Leeds Live this morning has all the detail on this, and it's confirmed that Hamburg SV's sporting director Klaus Costa has named Sebastiaan Bornauw as a player on their shopping list this summer. He was asked about it directly and he said the following: "We are familiar with the player. He's on a list of players that we are looking at. It's not as if the deal is imminent, however." So they're in that lovely position that Leeds have been in all summer. Interest in, no formal move. It's a new one for this summer. Outside of the normal keeping tabs on, watching, monitoring the situation, you've now got this one this year, which is interested, but no formal moves just yet. So they are lining it up, and we'll see. If he was to leave Leeds, you would imagine Leeds would want to bring in cover in that position. But Daniel Farke has said repeatedly, if a player does want to move, he won't stand in their way. So you do get the feeling that this would sit very much with Sebastiaan Bornauw. If he wants to go and play regular minutes, then Farke will likely not stand in his way and he'll move on. And Leeds might look then to bring in cover in that right centre-back position. Or Leeds could look at James Justin and think that he's the cover in that position. He was excellent last season when he played there, and use the money to spend elsewhere on the team. So one to keep an eye on at the very least, but it does feel like it'll be Bornauw's decision to stay or go, whatever he decides that he wants to do. I don't think anybody at Leeds is pushing him out the door. He has been a very serviceable deputy when Leeds have needed him. Hasn't really let us down. No issues at all with him. Move on. So a familiar name from summers of the past popped up. It's not Ryan Kent, so we can relax there at least. Max Aarons, who almost signed for Leeds United a couple of years back, and he's now popped up again. There are some reports linking Leeds United with a move for Max Aarons. They've been labelled as cover in left back position, which doesn't have a huge amount of credibility for it, and at least some clarification is needed on this position. The story, when you go looking into it, because it has been reported by a lot of aggregate sites this morning, when you go digging into it, it seems to trace back to Ekram Kanor, who's not exactly what you would classify as a credible source, especially with exclusives, and that's exactly what this story was. Kanor put out an exclusive stating that Leeds United and AS Roma had Max Aarons on their shortlist, and Leeds were looking at him as left back cover. When you look around all the other clubs' media, Coventry, Nottingham Forest are also believed to be clubs that are interested in him, and Leeds don't really appear anywhere else. The interest in this is worth digging into as well. He's labelled as cover and competition for Gabby Goodmunson, but Max Aarons is primarily a right back. He is right footed, and he's played the very vast majority of his football at right back. He's played the odd time at left back, but very infrequently. Even when Daniel Farke had him at Norwich, he barely ever played him at left back. He was nearly always played right back. Last season on loan at Rangers, he did play a little bit more on the left-hand side, but still the bulk of his season was played at the right-back position. Now, you could see a scenario again in here where James Justin comes into it. Leeds could potentially look at a Max Aarons as a right-back cover or competition for Jayden Bogle, and then potentially looking at James Justin as the cover for the left-back position. But you're not getting a bespoke left-back and someone who can do what Gabby Goodmunson can do from an attacking perspective. You're going to end up with a right footer who will come infield rather than a left footer that will go on the outside, and that would then clash with Noah Okafor in that position. So it's an interesting one. There's plenty of interest in Max Aarons, but again, when you go digging, it does appear that he will move on this summer from Bournemouth, but A lot of other clubs being labelled as keenly interested or making a move for him. Leeds are, at the very best, a footnote of interest in the player. So it does feel like he might be just being tagged onto Leeds because Daniel Farke has a relationship with him in the past. Easy link, and we'll get clicks. So, yeah, not a great source on this one. To be completely frank, the source is garbage on this one. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, let's move on. A couple of stories to wrap up today and a couple of quick fire ones. We'll start off with Joe Gelhardt. And there's more interest in Joffrey. Leeds Live have confirmed yesterday that Joe Gelhardt is expected to leave Leeds this summer. And there are 3 championship clubs labelled as being interested in him. The bulk of the story around Joe Gelhardt now centres around Birmingham City. BBC's Mike White confirmed Birmingham's interest in him. There are 2 other unnamed championship clubs right now. Hull City still said to have some level of interest in him. Their manager did speak about him last week and said that he would like to bring him back to the club, but they've got other priorities. The feeling around the place is that they are looking for a cut price deal on him. So for Leeds' sake, the more championship clubs that get involved in this, the better it could be for Leeds from a valuation perspective. White also confirmed that there are several other clubs looking at Joe Gelhardt right now. The feeling around the place is this one could happen pretty soon as well. So expect Joe Gelhardt to move on from the club. Not necessarily imminently, but in the next week or so. We'll see. And then the final one today, again, it's kind of just wrapping up a story that's been floating around for a while, and it's Pavel Schulz. And the latest on a potential move for the Olympic Lyon attacker. The YP via One Football say that Leeds did make contact with Lyon for Pavel Schulz a few weeks back, but have now described Leeds' interest as not a player they're actively pursuing right now. They do also include the very obvious summer caveat of this can obviously change as the window moves on. The Daily Mirror have also reported that Aston Villa and Everton have gotten involved with this as well. Aston Villa seems to be linked with absolutely every player that Leeds United are being linked with right now, but they're both believed to be showing interest in Pavel Schulz as well. A recent report in France stated that Leeds United's interest didn't move beyond interest. No formal offer from Leeds United was put into Lyon, and the dealings haven't moved beyond the initial inquiries. And that's likely because when Leeds inquired about Pavel Schulz, Lyon's valuation of him didn't meet what Leeds United's valuation of him was. And if Leeds did move away from him pretty quickly, likely to be a fairly big gap in those valuations. Now, again, as I say, things can obviously change over the course of a window. If the player decides he wants to go, if the club decide they want to drop their price and let him go, it is interesting one to keep an eye on. Now, Juventus are the latest club to be linked with Pavel Schulz. They seem to be one that are expressing the firmest level of interest in the player right now, so he could end up moving there. If he goes to Aston Villa, you get Champions League football. If he goes to Juve, gets top end Serie A, likely European football as well. He's got a contract till 2029, so Lyon aren't exactly in a position where they need to sell him right now. Very different to the Igor Pajot situation at Marseille. So, yeah, one to keep an eye on, but it does look like Leeds has potentially moved in a different direction, at least for the short term. We'll see where this goes towards the end of the window. Fingers crossed Daniel Farke can actually get his number 10 this summer. He's only been asking for 4 summers now, so we'll see. Anyway, folks, that'll be it for me today. You can check out last night's podcast over here, myself and Andrea Russo. The SCR video is down there if you want the detail on that. And you can subscribe to the channel, that little button there in the middle. About 35% of you are not subscribed to the channel to watch every single day. So think about it. Costs you nothing and would definitely help us out as well. Have a great rest of your day. I'll be back over the weekend with a transfer talk. We'll see where we are then. Enjoy your day. See you soon. Bye.